Well, here we are at yet another episode of If It Be Your Will podcast. We're season three. I was checking the archives yesterday, and this is going to be episode 22 of season three. And I couldn't be more happy with the artist I've brought in here. Joh Chase is joining me on the eve of their solo record release, coming April 26th. Is that right,
Yes.
Joe? We
Yes,
made that. I
exactly.
made that. I was adding more days on, but that's when it's
Yeah.
coming out. Um, so we're gonna just kind of have a chat. I'm in Montreal. They're coming in from LA. I'm sure the weather's much nicer there than it is here. Envy, jealousy is seeping out of me right now, but I'm gonna overlook that. And so, Joe, thanks so much for joining me today and kind of looking at your musical journey and the pace that it's been and how it's evolved, continuously evolving.
Yeah,
Um, I always like to kind of get going with a little bit of your backstory. Um,
sure.
when did it all start to click that music was going to be a part of your existence?
Sure.
What are those early memories that you have of, I don't know, singing somewhere or
Mm.
hearing an artist or a parent or a loved one sharing with you? Where did all that start for you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's really cool to be part of
Awesome.
your podcast and your blog and
Thanks.
all
Thank
the
you.
work that you've done for so many years. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised in a my household growing up was like very religious, like very evangelical. Um and but we're the kind of household, the kind of version of that I grew up in was there was like a lot of but there was a lot of like arts programming. So
Mm,
not like that kind of the person's experience where they grew up in a religious house that was like we don't do anything. It was like actually
mm,
there's we go to the opera with my grandma, like the big church that we're part of, my dad plays the oboe in their all their,
mm,
big productions. And we have big productions and there was like theater and there was choir and there was like kids rock music, so there was
mm,
so I grew up surrounded by music and that was a really positive part of that experience. Um
mhm.
and then also I have an older brother who's disabled and his disabilities are, pretty it's hard to describe exactly, but growing up he needed a lot of and still today like he thrives when he has like musical soothing, and
Okay,
there's just
cool.
music. So we just had music going on all the time at
Mm,
our house. And I'm the third of four kids.
mhm,
So my older sister, she was very musical. My father's very musical. He's an oboist. And
mm,
yeah, so it was just always happening. And I remember my first time that I ever shared like a solo song because I played like little things. We had like assemblies as kids at their
right.
little private Christian school I went to. So it was
Mm,
like I grew up in like a pretty sheltered environment in certain ways. That's probably a consequence of like living in uh like a suburb, very suburban. You don't even know there's a city where there's people
mm,
who are like running up against each other who are from different walks of life and different economic, you know, come from different economic experiences. Whereas like
mhm,
everyone I grew up with relatively the same.
mm.
Every now and then you'd be like, wow, that person's like slightly different. And like, you're like, wow,
Right.
that's so weird. Like your brain couldn't understand it. So,
Mm,
but yeah, I mean, I performed some with my friends, like in elementary school, we had like a little band we put together. But when I was 12, I played at a bookstore for my like sixth grade class or seventh grade
mm,
class. It was something one of my teachers put on.
mm,
And she was like, you can recite poetry, you can read something. And I was like, can I perform a song? She's like, sure. So, and I
mm,
had just gotten my first little like Les Paul copy, like a little
mm.
Japanese $100,
Right.
um, really heavy electric guitar from a pawn shop or whatever. And had a little amp, so I carded that in there and I stood there and I remember I was so nervous that my hands couldn't shake. So my leg just started like sporadically shaking. Like I was like, oh God, that's so embarrassing. But anyways, but that's probably my
That's
first
really
like
cool.
yeah, solo
Yeah,
music experience and then I just had so many more because of the environment I grew up in.
right. And what was that first song? Like, where did it come from?
Ooh.
Was it a cover or was it a song that you had actually penned?
I mean, at that point I was writing, yeah, all sorts of everything. My world was very I was very religious and I was very like the world I cared about was like the spiritual world in my
Mm,
mind, like at my
mm,
young kid mind. I didn't know,
hmm.
and I think not to like diss my childhood or anything, but like I didn't come home and talk to my parents about like what's going on in the world,
Right,
or like
right.
what's a critical way to think about this. Like we didn't do
Mm,
that. We just talked about like the world and how it related to like God.
right,
So
right.
that was like that was like the majority of my songwriting. And I think I don't know which that if this is the right song, but I remember there being a song where I was like the subject was like um painting a picture of like this one there's a Christian. I was trying to explain my partner, I'm engaged to my partner and she grew up
Oh,
not
congrats.
in a religious household. So
Mm.
she just doesn't she's like, "Wait, what are they talking about?" She doesn't understand. So I have to like tell
Mm.
her and but yeah, there's that a religious idea, and I don't know, it's probably in other religious traditions too. That's like, um, this one God is the God of justice. So it's like
Right,
everything actually is good in the world because this one God makes it that way. And I think I was like trying
right,
to compare, like I was saying stuff I didn't know anything about. I mean, I
right.
guess that's what I
Mm.
was doing. I was 12 and I
Yeah,
was saying weird stuff.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, you came to like in your early recordings, I found your little two song that you put out called Song Too Far, and I Don't Get You Either.
Oh yeah.
And it seemed like that was you were saying before that what we were all this, there was no distinction between you, me, and when did that like was it at that time? I mean, those songs were put out in 206, right?
Hmm.
When did you start kind of like making that separation between religion and self?
That you pinpointed it. You literally
Hmm.
pinpointed it. Yeah, thanks so much for like digging and find that's like an honor that you would take the time to listen. But um yeah, those two songs I picked those off of a record I put out in 2006, full length record that was called A Pretty Kind of Off White. I don't it's not I kind of took it off the internet.
Hmm.
I think. I don't know. But you can only do so much. But yeah, exactly though. Those two songs, Too Far was kind of it was actually putting words to something I didn't really understand at the time, which was if I stay in my, like at that time, deep friendship,
Right.
AKA my first girlfriend, if I stay in communion with that relationship, I might go too far away from that like religious life I grew up in.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
was kind of like, I was finding those words to say that, like,
Right.
oh man, I've never felt something like this. This is like the deepest stuff I've ever felt.
Hmm.
And it's not some sort of perverted sexual thing, which was I grew up
Right.
with that meant, it was very homophobic
Yeah.
where I grew up. So,
Yeah.
so then to feel like this deep, deep, abiding friendship, love, and be like, wait, if I say no to that because of like this world I grew up in,
Hmm.
I'm gonna lose that world, or I'm gonna lose something. So what do I lose?
Right. Right.
And then yeah, I don't get you either was it's a song
Hmm.
that was like the beginning of my mental health journey, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
I had like extreme anxiety and depression my freshman year of college, and
Okay.
I didn't have words for that.
Hmm.
That was all very spiritualized. It was like, oh, God's far from me, or it's just like really but some of it was based around a kind of a crush relationship I had with this like older dude camp counselor.
Okay.
That was like my cousin's wakeboard instructor, like super weird, whatever. And but it
Hmm.
was like he kind of was dragging like stringing me along because I think he was probably like I'm 25 or whatever. I probably shouldn't be like hanging out with this, 18 like not even 18-year-old person. Um and we were just hanging out, but then I was like I didn't understand what was going on. So that's that song I don't get you either was from that. But yeah,
Okay.
that's that era of
Yeah.
life where I'm really splitting
Right.
from that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can get that sense in not only in the lyrics, but I feel in the music too. It's like
Hmm.
it's powerful, it's raw, it's like trying to, you have these two things kind of battling one another, and how am I going to find myself amongst this? Um, and then I noticed nature starting to slowly seep in. And
Hmm.
I was on TikTok. I wanted to go and see your channel, and I saw you do some what do you call them? Arctic plunges or polar
Oh,
plunges,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then your cover art for two, well, the new one coming out solo. I mean, you're in a river. It looks
Yeah.
freezing. Um, is that a metaphor you like? Is this kind of
Mm,
like, because again, it has this religious kind of baptism
sure,
feel, but it's
sure,
also this refreshing, cleansing kind of waking yourself out of this
sure.
slumber of past.
Yeah,
Could you expand on that a little bit? Like the imagery that you use to kind of illustrate this shifting of mindsets?
yeah. I love how you put that. I don't know. I like it, we could just leave off with that. Um, but yeah, I mean, no, I'm so deeply still very I am so sensitive to other people in like a deep what feels like what I've been conditioned to feel like is a spiritual experience. So whether it's not or it is doesn't matter. That's just what my experience is. But yeah, so and I still struggle with mental health. Like I have depression. I
Right.
have I still so yeah, the polar plunges, like I'll do like a 2-minute cold shower in the morning and just be like laughing because I'm like, this is insane. Why am I doing this? This is so stupid. Like, but then it helps my mood shift a lot. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
that's in my control to do, and that helps me. But yeah, no, nature is so huge for me now. I mean, I'm in my late 30s, and um, I think I started to understand the power of nature probably, um, in my early 20s. And,
Right.
kind of like you're saying, like waking up from a slumber of like, before that, I understood there's like these extraordinary things like beauty
Hmm.
around, but then
Hmm.
to know, to understand how that feeds my soul and my body. And but yeah,
Right.
polar plunges. I love doing polar plunges. It's like love hate,
Right.
you know.
Right. Hate
Um,
started the thought of doing it, but once you're in there or out, it's like, okay, I know why I put myself through this torture now.
yes, yes. And I went that river. I went and took pictures with my younger brother and his wife, his partner, my sister-in-law, and she took those photos. But we went up to this river in Washington State, and and I'm pretty I'm pretty sensitive to the cold. So it didn't feel
Okay.
it was cold, but it wasn't too bad. And when I got home back to my parents' house, they weren't even there. I was just staying there by myself. I had my lips were like purple. And I was like, "Oh, I guess I should." And then I like took a shower and I was like, "Oh, I can feel my body again." Like I didn't even realize the hypothermia was like setting in.
Right, right. I love the cover art though. It's a great photo.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think it's well representative too of the record itself.
Mm.
What? Tell me a little bit about your songwriting process. I saw too on TikTok that you were building a studio, a home studio. I'd love to
Yeah.
know where that's at, and like, what's your musical process of a day? Like, how do you make sure that music is present, or you're, strumming or writing or
Yeah.
whatever it might be?
Yeah. It's a struggle. It's not easy. I think I have a full-time job also. I'm an elementary music teacher.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's like a it's really awesome. I love getting to be in young people's lives like that. It's that's
Hmm.
like such a high honor
Hmm.
to be an adult that's entrusted with, the safety of these kids and also then the music aspect while their parents are doing what they need to do
Right.
to care for their kids, going to work and stuff. And but yeah, so I don't have a ton of time. It's like
Mm.
I can tour in the summers and I can tour on my breaks and I can take breaks as needed to do my music career. But yeah, so I'm in a kind of a rectangular room right now. This is my garage is right next to it. It's a small. It's
Okay.
an old 1930s Sears kit home.
Mm.
So
Wow.
some Sears kit. Yeah, it's like so
Right.
bizarre. Before Home Depot, And but so yeah,
Mm.
it's just this and then the back wall behind me here is like the wall itself is built onto a retaining wall and my
Wow.
neighbor's pool is right there. So it's
Wow.
like yeah, in LA like where I
Close
live like
quarters. Yeah.
yeah, close quarters, but then also just like the the nature of the retaining walls, it keeps me up at night.
Hmm.
I guess that's how you know you're an adult is when you're like, but if the retaining wall doesn't hold up and I don't know how it works, like, but no, all that was to say too, like, I work so much. So, um,
Hmm.
working with my hands, like getting to like put stuff together and, paint and drywall and install different things and create different things really is like therapeutic and gets me to that place where I'm like good to sit
Yeah.
down and write
Yeah.
music. And I like last night I just sat out here and pulled some samples off Splice
Hmm.
and just basically tried to make something cool. And I subbed for a friend for a church gig. Actually, it's like a pretty cool little small place. And they're very, you know, cool about
Hmm.
gay people and trans people and
Hmm.
um. But churches they had an extra drum kit sitting in the room, and I was like, "Yo, you guys, can I buy that?" And they're like, "You can have it." So they just,
Oh,
yeah. So I have a little drum kit
sweet.
in here now. Yeah,
Awesome.
and that was like very very cool. So
Yeah.
I'm building that out just so that I have the space.
Right.
It's really
Right.
important for me. But
Do you tend to rate a specific like are weekends when you have your Saturdays and Sundays, are those more prolific times for that you plan out, okay, I'm going to take an hour or whatever to actually sit down and get some stuff out of the brain onto paper?
yeah, I mean, I do keep journals. I have like a journal that goes with me everywhere I go, and then I have
Hmm.
notes on my phone.
Yeah.
Um, so and then I always keep voice memos of anything that comes to me at any time. So I'm
Right.
trying to, it's now really like about organizing
Right.
those little things when they come to me and remembering where they are. And I think that is a muscle that probably other singers, other songwriters, I know they have too, where it's like that one idea, where did I put it? Oh yeah, I put it here. Like, I don't know. But I actually have this, I'll show you this little like wooden box. I don't know where I got it, I forget, but and
Hmm.
it just says
Nice.
next record on it. And I just
Cool.
have like some ideas in there.
Right
And I
on.
just
That's
keep
cool. Love that.
putting in
Hmm.
there. Yeah, I saw yeah, an author do that and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So about the new record, I mean, it's coming out on Kill Rock Stars April 26th again, called Solo. Um, what's the origin story of this record? Is it older tracks, newer tracks, like a mishmash? Like, and how did it come to be that you have this? I mean, I will say it again, outstanding record about to be
Thank
released. I'm
you.
lucky I got to hear it before, so I could kind of talk to you about it.
Yeah, thank you.
What's the origin story of this solo record?
Yeah, it's really like I think 2018 or 2017 I started realizing like if I really wanted to make a really good record, I was going to have more money to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um and so I'll speak to kind of that part of it really quick and so then I did
Sure.
it. Kickstarter campaign, I found somebody who this person named Laser is this like awesome, amazing genius who
Mm,
helped me organize my Kickstarter and plan it. There, he's like a Kickstarter consultant kind of person, and then I did the Kickstarter that succeeded, so I had the funds, and then a mix engineer Dan Molad, who I really adore his work.
mm,
I was able to get him to mix a record, and then another really cool lucky thing is this guy from actually from Seattle, Washington, was down here in Pasadena at the time teaching and brought
mm,
his whole studio, all his gear.
wow.
And so he just had this incredible treasure trove of gear just sitting in
Mm,
this like kind of weird like pseudo college, like not a accredited college place where he was teaching.
mm,
Like it was just very lucky stuff. Um,
right.
but so that's that aspect. And then COVID happened. I had a vinyl problem, and then I opened up for the artist bitch who's on Kill Rock Stars, and she was like, "You have to talk to Slim at Kill Rock
Mm,
Stars." And
mm,
then they were like, "Cool, we'll release your record." So then I had to wait a little bit more for us to kind of get stuff ready. But then the
right.
tracks, yeah, they're older. Like a couple of the songs are, 15 years old. Actually, I was realizing, um,
Right.
and
Right.
they've been with me. They stood the test of time. And
Mm,
then I think the rest of them are within the last 8 years or so.
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you find your voice for this? I mean, it's such an array of genres. Like I was trying to describe it to my partner, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's bluesy. There's basement pop in there. There's
Right.
bedroom. There's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how did you find the voice that appears on all of these? And I'm not saying that it's disjointed one bit. I think the
Right.
flow of it is just spectacular.
Yeah.
But it has so many different seemingly voices that how did you come to all these? Like, how did they come out of you?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the a record I put out in 2010, it was just like, self-published, self released, whatever. Um,
Right.
was like full band. It was like when I was in my Dave Matthews, Ani DeFranco black hole. That's what I call that. There was like an 8 year era.
Right.
And, there was a dude living on my street here in Los Angeles in K-Town. He was a Congolese Sukos guitar player, and he toured the world with this Parisian band since he was a kid. And he just was a neighbor, and he was like, hanging out with his nephew all the time, and he would come over, and so we brought him on. So he played some guitar on the record, and I had a saxophone player friend at the time who was always playing gigs with me. So kind of that vibe. So I think that's kind of like that was like, yeah, 14 years ago, but um yeah, that's I think that created some of that context.
Right.
Um and then yeah, when Damon, my friend Damon who sings on Common Man, um really building the track around kind of um the vibe, like kind of this like grungy pseudo hip hop, not
Mm,
really hip hop, but just like an R&B kind of feeling that I wanted to build like for him and for
mm,
me, and that happened. But yeah, I think um yeah, and then Avalanche feels like an Americana tune in a lot of ways.
yeah.
And
Yeah. I love how it was described as um it's like blues meets Brandy Carlisle. There was a
yeah,
comment that somebody or you had quoted or somebody
yeah,
quoted it saying that which makes a lot of sense. And again, that imagery, right, of natural imagery of coming into your songs again, which
sure.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And
Thank you.
you have retrospect now, so it's kind of like this journey of creating the songs, gathering, playing them, recording them, producing, mixing. With a little bit of distance now, how do you feel about it? How, like, if
Yeah.
you were to have to describe solo to, somebody that's, oh, I've heard your earlier stuff. What's this solo all about? What words you put to that?
Yeah. That's a great question. Um I think it's like I'm fine. It's a record where I'm finding myself in a lot of ways musically.
Hmm.
And, and that's like not a linear thing. It's like through the course of creating those songs and making that record, really finding myself. And even since, like the retrospect aspect, I was talking to Dan who mixed it. And um, just like when we listen to Gone now, I'm like, whoa, why does it not just start with Gone? Da, da, why did we do that whole intro thing? Um, but
Hmm.
I guess I've been like influenced. My attention span is now depleted in the last 3 years. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think
Hmm.
how I would describe it to others is, yeah, just it's definitely a place where I'm finding myself, finding my voice, finding what I want it to really what I want it to sound like, and what I will accept a lot of imperfections in other people and myself, and
Hmm.
that's fine. But I think when you're releasing art, you do want to at least be aware of, okay, is this good enough?
Right.
Where's the line? And I think for me, for
Right.
a long time, felt fine releasing things that were like maybe they didn't they didn't reach the level that I wanted them to.
Hmm.
And so, this is kind of this record for me is like, here's a level. Cool.
Right.
Now we,
Only
and
upward from here on out, right? Like that's
exactly.
cool. I love how
Yeah.
you describe that. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks.
So, kind of wrapping things up here, Joe. What what's the future? Record coming out. What's the rest of 2024 looking like other than teaching and I assume writing more? You got your next record box beside you, which I'm sure will get
Yes.
fuller and fuller. What's
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what 2024 is for Joe Chase.
Thank you. Yeah, I think um I'm going to be touring this summer the West Coast with my friend Brittany and Tranbau. She's like an incredible singer-songwriter from Philly. Um and just a awesome person. She's someone who it's just such a gift to like meet someone at this point in my career exactly where I am, who is a great companion to tour with and to play music with, and I respect her so deeply. So getting
Hmm.
ready for that tour in June and July, and then yeah, next record stuff, kind of I I think I oscillate between, kind of wanting to make music that sounds like Lucky Penny or
Hmm.
that sounds like the song sometimes, and then also
Hmm.
make like a sit down, guitar based singer songwriter, or not
Right.
even singer songwriter, but guitar based song.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
so I think
That's
yeah,
cool. That's
just kind of
wicked.
oscillating between those, and yeah, I think not trying to make any decisions, but just do everything, put it in put it in my hard drive and in my little box or whatever,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then go from there,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited about the release for you.
Thank you.
I know that it will get some great listens. It's really a really great album. So check it out, people. Coming out April 26th via Kill Rock Records. Joe Chase, amazing. This has been really cool. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and how it all kind of began. Really fun talking with you. So thank you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bluebell Bonnie, pale skin, chapped lips. On that night, found a beginning without an end in those eyes. Fever pitch of young love oriented all our stars. Found our bed in the spin of the earth and all its charge. Oh, that love, that love. I couldn't see it coming, I couldn't see it coming. That love, that love. Just felt the rumble, then it hit me like an avalanche. Held you tight, brown skin, brown eyes. Oh, you cried. Sought to love you harder than a mother could have ever tried. But you grew up like a twisted vine and covered my life. Now my glow wants to break through the leaves. Feed your fight, oh that love, that love. I couldn't see it coming, I couldn't see it coming. That love. Just felt the rumble, then it hit me like an avalanche. Baptized you in the river of my grief. Didn't know I was doing anything. I tried to keep you still so I could stop shaking.